We were taught to fear the devil, but no one warned us about the gods. They came not with horns, but with crowns of iron, masks of mystery, and voices that split the sky. These were the gods of our ancestors, spirits of power, justice, and protection. We offered kola nuts, goats, blood, and in return they gave us harvest, victory, healing. But one day something changed. The gods stopped answering. The shrines fell silent. The same hands that once blessed began to destroy. What happened? Were we cursed? Did we offend them? Or did the gods betray us? In this episode, we enter the forbidden stories of gods who turned on their own, of spirits who once gave life, then demanded death, of the sacred beings whose wrath reshaped entire tribes, the gods who betrayed us, ancient African deities that turned against their own. The truth will not comfort you, but it will awaken you. In the African spiritual world, gods are not simply benevolent beings cloaked in eternal mercy. They are powerful forces, elemental, personal, and often unpredictable. Unlike the clear-cut good versus evil dichotomy common in many Western belief systems, African deities are complex. They reflect nature itself, nurturing one moment, devastating the next. Just like the sun can both ripen a harvest and scorch a field, the divine is capable of healing and harming, loving and disciplining. To understand betrayal in African cosmology, we must begin by embracing this dual nature. The gods are not flawed, they are full. Their anger is not weakness, it is law made visible. Consider Shango, the revered Orisha of thunder and lightning in Yoruba tradition. He is celebrated for bringing justice, for defending the weak and upholding truth. But when disrespected, when offerings are denied or rituals broken, Shango does not whisper warnings, he roars. His lightning can strike with surgical clarity, burning what was once blessed. He has razed villages, punished kings, and shaken entire communities. Not out of spite, but out of a divine responsibility to maintain moral order. Shango embodies the storm not because he is cruel, but because justice, like thunder, must sometimes arrive with force. This duality is not unique to Shango. It is present in countless African deities, forces that bless and break depending on the integrity of the people they serve. The gods watch not just our prayers, but our actions. They respond to truth, to lies, to justice denied, to respect offered or withheld. They are not just reflections of our hopes, but mirrors of our failures. To call them simply good is to miss their purpose. To call them evil is to misunderstand their justice. In African cosmology, the spiritual world is not separate from the moral one. The gods are moral enforcers. They carry the codes of balance, Maat, Ase, Ogu, Orun, across different traditions. When people uphold these codes, blessings flow. When people corrupt them, storms rise. The gods intervene not out of emotional instability but to reset the scales. This is divine reciprocity. This is sacred consequence. And so, when the gods strike, it is not always betrayal. It is response. When they punish, it is not personal. It is cosmic realignment. This understanding is vital as we move deeper into this story. We are not dealing with cartoon villains or fallen angels. We are engaging with cosmic forces that operate according to a logic deeper than fear and favor. Forces that remember promises, watch loyalties, and demand respect, not just in ritual, but in how we live. The gods are not symbols, they are systems. To understand their betrayal, we must first accept their complexity. And in that complexity, we might find a reflection of our own. Ogun is one of the most revered and feared Orishas in Yoruba cosmology. He is the god of iron, war, and technology, the patron of blacksmiths, warriors, and all those who wield tools of transformation. Without Ogun, civilization would not have progressed. He opened the path through the forest with a machete when no other deity could. He forged the first weapons, built the first tools, and shaped the bones of human innovation. Every nail, every spear, every rail track carries a trace of Ogun's spirit. He gave fire to human hands, and with it, the power to build or destroy. But the story of Ogun is not just one of creation, it is also one of destruction. After gifting humans with the power of iron, Ogun expected honor, offerings, and respect. Yet as time passed, some mocked him. They questioned his fierceness, his rage, his thirst for sacrifice. In some versions of the myth, Ogun appeared at a festival drunk and was ridiculed. Enraged, he unsheathed his blade and turned it against the very people he once protected. Blood ran through the village streets. The god who gave tools became the god of terror. And in the aftermath, Ogun withdrew, not in defeat, but in disappointment. This story is more than myth, it is a warning. Divine power, once invited, must be honored. Spiritual technology is not neutral. It responds to energy, intention, and ritual. Ogun, as the spirit of iron, reflects the duality of all tools. A knife can prepare food or take a life. A forge can build a temple or a gun. The line between progress and peril lies not in the god, but in the heart of the people who summon him. To dishonor Ogun is to awaken a force that does not forget. His rage is not petty, it is precision. His punishment is not blind, it is calibrated. The god of iron has edges that cut both ways. Ogun's withdrawal from human affairs after his rage is also telling. He did not stay to bask in his destruction. He pulled back. He became distant. And from that distance came a spiritual hunger, a realization among his devotees that without his blessings, life became harder. Crops failed, wars were lost, the earth turned silent. Appeasement rituals were developed, sacrifices of roosters, iron tools offered at his shrines, songs sung to soothe the iron within him. Temples were built not just to praise him but to plead for his return. To call Ogun was to call responsibility, and responsibility came with cost. Ogun's story is repeated across the continent in various forms. In Dahomey, the god Gu holds a similar position. In Congo, the spirit of iron is both healer and judge. The lesson is clear. When power is gifted from the spirit world, it comes with law. To break that law is not merely to offend, it is to invite rupture. In the case of Ogun, betrayal was not human pain alone. It was spiritual dissonance. He did not simply attack. He responded. The force that once cleared roads and shaped kingdoms turned on his own not because he changed, but because they did. And yet, Ogun remains deeply loved. Not despite his fury, but because of it. His rage is evidence of his depth, his presence, his unwillingness to be trivialized. Devotees do not approach Ogun lightly. They come with sincerity, with metal, with blood, with truth. They sing songs that speak of his justice, his fire, his forge. They remember that to honor Ogun is to respect the source of strength. To disrespect him is to gamble with forces that predate memory. His story is a living reminder that betrayal does not always start with the gods. To this day, blacksmiths across West Africa say a prayer before striking iron, whispering Ogun's name in reverence. Soldiers invoke him in times of war, and mechanics in bustling cities leave small offerings beside their tools. In the diaspora, from Brazil to Trinidad, Ogun's presence is honored in songs and dances, his image invoked in rituals that link continents. These practices are not superstitions. They are living acknowledgments of a god who still walks through sparks and steel. When machines fail or engines stall, some still murmur his name, not in fear but in respect. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of Ogun's tale. Not that the gods are vengeful, but that they are vigilant. They remember, they feel, they expect. In the language of spirit, to forget is a form of violence. When we treat sacred gifts as disposable, when we mock what is holy, we invite not just silence, but consequence. Ogun's fury may be terrifying, but it is never without cause. His justice may be fierce, but it is always rooted in order. He is not a god of random chaos. He is the god of exacting memory. In the rich and profound cosmology of the Dogon people of Mali, the story of creation begins not with man, but with beings older than time. Primordial spirits known as the Nommo. These celestial entities were born from the supreme creator Amma, sent forth to bring structure to chaos, to set the rhythm of the stars, to guide the breath of the universe itself. The Nommo are amphibious, water-dwelling spirits often depicted as half human, half fish, and they represent order, wisdom, and the vital connection between spirit and matter. In their essence, they hold the codes of life. But even among these divine beings, disruption emerged. Among these powerful beings, however, there came one who defied the sacred law. In an act of rebellion that shook the fabric of reality, one of the Nommo broke the cosmic pact. He descended to Earth prematurely, without Amma's permission, bringing imbalance to a world still being woven. In Dogon myth, this was not merely a fall from grace, it was a tear in the universe's design. The harmony that the other Nommo were meant to nurture was disrupted. Creation stuttered, the stars dimmed, life as it was intended fractured into chaos. Faced with this breach of sacred order, Amma, the supreme deity, did not respond with forgiveness. He responded with sacrifice. To restore balance, Amma dismembered the rebellious Nommo. His body was scattered across the universe, each piece becoming a symbol of cosmic realignment. Through this divine execution, Amma re-established the laws of balance, justice, and harmony. The dismembered Nommo in his death became sacred. His remains anchored rituals, infused altars, and his story became a mythic precedent that warned of the cost of divine arrogance. This act is staggering in its implication. In African spirituality, even divine beings are not above consequence. The gods themselves are bound to the very laws they help uphold. Power without order is not revered, it is rejected. The Nommo's fall was not merely a divine tragedy, it was a lesson. That even among gods, there is accountability. Even among celestial forces, there is justice. Amma's act was not born of hatred, but of necessity. To restore life, one life, however divine, had to be taken apart. The tale of the Nommo is unlike any creation myth in Western traditions. It doesn't place divinity on an unreachable pedestal. Instead, it weaves gods into the same moral tapestry as humans. The Dogon worldview suggests that disobedience, cosmic or earthly, must always be reconciled. That balance is not a one-time event, but a continuous struggle. And through the story of the dismembered god, we are reminded that spiritual failure is possible even for the most sacred beings. Yet there is redemption in this myth. The sacrifice of the Nommo was not the end, it was a beginning. From his scattered essence, new life emerged. Rituals were born to realign with his wisdom. The Dogon still observe celestial patterns and sacred ceremonies that trace back to this moment of divine rupture. In this cosmology, judgment does not annihilate, it transforms. The fallen Nommo did not vanish. He became embedded in the earth, the stars, the ritual cycles of life. His betrayal did not destroy the world, it helped reforge it. To this day, Dogon rituals invoke the memory of the sacrificed Nommo. Their ceremonies are not merely acts of remembrance, but spiritual recalibrations, attempts to keep the world in harmony by acknowledging the very moment it almost collapsed. The Nommo's fragmented body is often evoked in sacred dances, in symbolic gestures of binding and unbinding, in chants that recall the tearing and mending of cosmic cloth. Each ritual is a promise renewed, a way to say, we remember the law, we walk within it. Among Dogon elders, the tale of the Nommo is used to teach humility. It reminds priests and initiates that divine status does not exempt one from discipline. The story is not just about a god who broke the law, it is about the universe that refused to let lawlessness prevail. This belief reinforces the interconnectedness of all things, divine beings, natural forces, and human behavior. To forget the lessons of the Nommo is to risk falling into chaos again. In this mythic betrayal, we find not destruction, but structure, not damnation, but duty. The Nommo who broke the universe also helped restore it through sacrifice. His fall became the foundation for moral memory. His judgment became a blueprint for balance. Blood has always held a sacred place in African spirituality, not simply as a symbol of life, but as a currency of commitment, a signature of sincerity. There are gods who, unlike the compassionate spirits of other traditions, demanded offerings that dripped red. These gods did not ask for sacrifice to gratify ego or showcase dominance. They required it as part of a covenant, an exchange that sealed power, justice, and divine favor. The gods who demanded blood were not inherently cruel. They were honest. They made clear that power came with a price, and that divine access required more than casual reverence. Take Nkondi, the fearsome spirit idols of the Congo people. These wooden figures, studded with nails and blades, were not decorations. They were contracts. Activated through ritual and sacrifice, Nkondi became spiritual judges, seeking out liars, punishing criminals, exacting vengeance for broken promises. Their eyes were believed to glow in the dark, and their presence was feared in disputes. Blood offered to Nkondi sealed truth. And if the pact was broken, Nkondi struck without mercy. The nails driven into its body were not acts of violence against the idol, but invocations of its righteous wrath. To call upon Nkondi was to demand justice, and justice sometimes came drenched in consequence. Then there is Eshu, the Yoruba trickster god, who dances on the edge of chaos and order. Eshu is not evil, but he is dangerous. He opens roads, delivers prayers to higher gods, and twists fate in ways that force humans to confront themselves. One day he helps, the next he deceives. He might trip you in the market, then help you find treasure on the road. His betrayal is never random, it's a mirror. If you make a promise and break it, Eshu will teach you. If you ask for something and are not ready to receive it, he may take it away. His blood price is not about gore, it is about gravity. He teaches that the spirit world is not a toy. These gods, Nkondi and Eshu among them, are not monsters. They are moral tests made divine. Their demands, including blood, are not sadistic but sacred. Blood in these traditions is a binding force, a declaration of truth so strong it must be matched by action. When people speak of betrayal by such gods, it often reveals more about human failure than divine injustice. These deities reflect back the chaos we bring into sacred spaces. They respond to lies, to cowardice, to disobedience, not to punish us, but to preserve order. The question remains, were these gods betraying their devotees, or were they holding up a mirror? In many ways, they are the custodians of consequences. They do not operate on sentiment, but on spiritual laws. When you offer your word or your blood, you enter into a pact. And pacts, in African spirituality, are living entities. To break one is to invite imbalance, and imbalance invites divine response. The gods who demanded blood understood the weight of covenant. They carried out justice not with hatred, but with unwavering clarity. To many outsiders, the presence of blood in ritual looks like barbarism, but to those within the tradition, it is precision. It is law. Just as a contract must be signed in ink in the modern world, a spiritual contract was signed in life force. When blood touched the earth, it became a bridge between the seen and the unseen. The gods watched the sincerity behind it, the truth beneath the action. To offer blood and break your word was a spiritual crime. The gods would not let that pass unbalanced. That is not cruelty, it is cosmic accountability. Even today, whispers of these practices survive in diasporic traditions like Palo in Cuba or Vodun in Haiti, where justice and spirits walk hand in hand. Sacrifices, animal or symbolic, continue as acts of alignment, not carnage. The gods demand what life demands, accountability. They come to test, to weigh, to witness. Their betrayal is often our reflection. When they turn against a person or community, it is usually because something in that person or community has already turned away from truth. These stories aren't just old, they are alive. They live in the shrines, in the dreams, in the warnings passed from elders to youth. They remind us that the gods are not indifferent spectators. They are active forces, capable of deep justice and fearsome correction. To stand before them is not to beg, but to declare. And in that declaration, blood may speak where words fail, not as violence, but as vow. In the long arc of divine silence and spiritual estrangement, it was not always the gods who betrayed first. Often it was the people, willingly or under duress, who turned their backs on the sacred, setting in motion a cycle of withdrawal that echoed through generations. The colonization of Africa did more than steal land. It desecrated altars, burned sacred groves, and mocked the spirits that once guided entire civilizations. Shrines that had stood for centuries as places of balance, prayer, and power were defiled, turned into ruins, or transformed into Christian churches. And with each violation, a sacred pact was broken. In this betrayal, the gods responded not out of vengeance, but necessity. In many traditions, divine presence is drawn to purity, to reverence, to alignment. When a community abandons its rituals, ignores its dreams, and replaces its sacred rhythms with foreign dogma, the gods do not remain. They withdraw. They fall silent. Or they manifest only through shadows, omens, sickness, misfortune. Among the Yoruba, it is said that Orisha will not dwell in a place where they are no longer honored. Among the Igbo, it is known that Allah, the Earth Mother, turns her face from those who spill blood carelessly or defile the land. Across West Africa, stories abound of deities who once walked openly with the people, but were driven away by betrayal. In some towns, elders tell of gods who once spoke through sacred trees or rivers, but who no longer answer. In others, festivals that once brought blessings now feel hollow, the rituals performed like empty gestures, the spirit gone. And yet, the memory lingers. The land remembers. The gods may fall silent, but they do not forget. They wait at the edges of dreams, of forests, of lost names. This collective betrayal didn't always come from malice. Sometimes it was survival. Forced conversions, punishments for practicing native religion, and the stigma of being labeled a pagan pushed many to hide or abandon their practices. But the result was the same. The cord was cut. And in that rupture, a sacred grief set in. Not just spiritual, but ancestral. because to turn from the gods is to turn from those who carried their names, the forebears, the lineage, the story of us. Yet even in their withdrawal, the gods leave signs. The strange dreams, the sudden illnesses, the whispered names in moments of crisis, they are not curses, they are calls, echoes of a covenant not fully broken, just forgotten. The gods withdrew not because they were defeated, but because they refused to be mocked. Sacredness demands sincerity, and until the people return in truth, many gods will remain quiet, watching from the veil. In the wake of the gods' silence or wrath, people often ask, were we betrayed, or did we betray first? This question, echoing through the wisdom of African elders, cuts deeper than mere stories of punishment. It invites introspection, not accusation. In traditional African spirituality, the divine operates on a principle of reciprocity. The relationship between humans and gods is not built on blind obedience, but on covenant, mutual responsibility, sacred promise, spiritual respect. To worship a deity is to enter a pact, and to break that pact is to invite imbalance. In this view, divine wrath is not vengeance, it is response. When shrines go cold, when rituals fail, when prayers are answered with thunder or stillness, it is not always because the gods have turned away. It is because the people have broken the chain. In Yoruba thought, Orunmila teaches that every consequence is rooted in choice. Among the Igbo, it is said that Allah, the Earth Mother, withdraws blessings when taboos are ignored. In Congo cosmology, the ancestors are not angry spirits, they are disappointed relatives watching their children stray from truth. The elders speak plainly, if you break the pact, the gods must answer, not out of hatred, but to restore balance. In this worldview, divine wrath is not a tantrum, it is a correction, like a mother scolding her child not out of anger, but out of love and duty. A god that never responds to broken promises is not a god at all, it is a shadow. True spiritual forces are living entities, they remember, they react, and they return what is given. The notion of divine betrayal, then, is often the echo of our own failure. When people claim a god has cursed them, elders ask, did you keep your word? When communities fall into famine, disease, or discord, the question is not why the gods are cruel, it is what sacred rhythm was disrupted. African traditions see the spiritual world not as distant, but as a mirror. What we send, we receive. What we neglect, we lose. What we abuse, we awaken in fury. This understanding transforms fear into responsibility. It reframes suffering as a call to recalibrate. When a god grows silent, the question is not, why did they abandon me, but where did I stop listening? Rituals are not merely performances, they are alignments. Offerings are not bribes, they are acknowledgments. The divine responds to sincerity and turns away from forgetfulness. In this light, the so-called betrayals of the gods are not betrayals at all, they are consequences in sacred disguise. In times of crisis, elders gather the community not just to pray, but to ask hard questions. What did we stop doing? What sacred days did we forget? What ancestral warnings did we ignore? These are not acts of superstition, but of spiritual audit. In African spirituality, memory is power. Forgetting is the first betrayal. Betrayal begins not with dramatic defiance, but with small lapses. Missing a festival, ignoring a dream, desecrating sacred space without knowing, and from those lapses imbalance enters like a whisper before it thunders. Among the Dogon, when misfortune befalls a village, diviners read the stars in the soil, tracing signs not just in the sky, but in the choices of men. They seek to restore alignment, not to escape punishment, but to repair the cord between earth and spirit. This is why rituals of atonement exist, not because the gods are petty, but because the human heart is prone to drift. Betrayal is often the beginning of awakening, and divine silence, rather than abandonment, may be the deepest form of invitation. In the end, the gods respond not just to what we offer, but to how we live. And when their presence grows distant, it is a call not to accuse, but to return to rhythm, to return to vow, to remember that even silence from the divine can carry sacred instruction. In the modern world, many Africans and members of the diaspora live in quiet fear of the very gods their ancestors once revered. The stories passed down through colonial education, missionary sermons, and Western media have painted these deities as demons, their shrines as sites of evil, and their rituals as primitive superstition. This fear is not born of experience, it is inherited. It is the echo of a colonial project designed to sever the spiritual roots of a people. And in that severing, much was lost: connection, confidence, clarity of purpose. Generations came to see their own spiritual systems as threats rather than sources of strength. As generations grew up with sanitized religious instruction and imported moral codes, the old gods were pushed into shadows. They became subjects of folklore, objects of suspicion, or were outright forgotten. What was once sacred became stigmatized. What was once communal power became personal shame. This has created a deep dissonance, a cultural and spiritual imbalance that ripples through families, communities, and nations. Without spiritual grounding, there is confusion. Without ritual, there is meaninglessness. Without memory, there is no direction forward. This disconnection is not just personal, it is collective. A people cut off from their spiritual heritage lose more than memory. They lose rhythm, they lose voice, and they lose the power to define themselves outside systems that were never built for their flourishing. The gods have not disappeared. They wait, but they cannot walk with us unless we walk toward them. Reclaiming them does not mean returning to the past. It means realigning with truth. It means restoring the bridges that colonization tried to burn. And it begins with unlearning the fear we were taught to feel. To move forward, we must first look back, not with shame, but with curiosity, with reverence. The gods were not the enemy. They were guardians of law, balance, and transformation. And when we reclaim what was demonized, we do not simply restore old altars, we restore ourselves. We remember who we were before we were told who to be. Around the world, a quiet reawakening is stirring. Young Africans are visiting shrines, asking questions once considered taboo, dreaming dreams in ancestral languages they were never taught. They are rediscovering power not in temples of stone, but in the drumbeat, the proverb, the soil. Social media is alive with voices naming their orishas, honoring the Loa, lighting candles not for fear, but for truth. This is not rebellion, it is return. It is a generation peeling back the curtain of fear to meet their forgotten guides. This restoration will not be easy. It will require courage to challenge inherited beliefs, to unlearn shame, and to stand at the crossroads where memory meets prophecy. But the reward is nothing less than wholeness. The gods who were betrayed by forgetfulness are not angry, they are waiting. And when we remember, they will rise not as shadows, but as guides. In that return lies healing. The gods never betrayed us. We just stopped listening. That is the truth that echoes through every forgotten shrine, every unanswered prayer, every spiritual silence. The stories we told ourselves about abandonment were rooted not in divine cruelty, but in human forgetfulness. The silence we feared was not punishment. It was invitation. It was the cosmos whispering for us to realign, to pause, to remember. We blamed the gods for leaving, when in truth, we turned our backs first. We replaced sacred names with foreign ones, buried ancestral altars beneath asphalt, and dismissed dreams as delusions. But the gods did not vanish. They stepped back. They watched, and they waited, for us to remember the rhythm, to feel the absence, to hunger again for the connection we once lived by. Now a new story begins, not of fear, but of return. These gods are not monsters. They are mirrors. They are the storm and the stillness, the justice and the mercy, the fire and the forge. They come not to haunt, but to guide. To those who dare to listen again, their footsteps will grow louder, their voices clearer. The gods are not gone. They are patient, and they are ready. Have you ever experienced divine silence? Have you ever felt forsaken, not by the world, but by the very spirit you once trusted? If you've asked yourself, where are the gods now? You are not alone. Across continents and generations, many have walked that path of disconnection, of longing, of quiet searching. But the journey does not end in silence. Sometimes that silence is a doorway, a place where you begin to hear the ancestors again, not with your ears, but with your soul. If this message stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of a story you once heard, a dream you couldn't forget, or a question you were too afraid to ask, share it. Write in the comments below. Speak it into the world. Because when we tell these stories, we resurrect memory. We breathe life into what colonization tried to bury. We build a sacred circle, not just of watchers, but of witnesses. Subscribe to this channel, not just to hear more, but to remember more. Because this space is for those ready to reconnect. for those who feel the drums beneath the silence, and for those who suspect that the gods were never gone, they were only waiting. And now, as we close, I pray for you, the one who watched, the one who listened, the one who wondered. May the silence that once frightened you now become a place of strength. May your spirit remember its ancient songs. May the gods that walk at midnight find you not afraid, but ready. And may your path be guided by those who never left your side, even when you forgot their names. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeking. Thank you for listening. If you're still here, it means something inside you resonates with these truths. Let that resonance grow. Share this video with someone who needs to remember. Someone who was told their heritage was darkness, when in fact it is deep and divine. Let this be more than content. Let it be communion. We are not just viewers behind screens. We are descendants, seekers, and keepers of flame. Let us hold that flame together. Join the conversation. Reclaim the language. Relearn the names. The gods walk with those who walk with purpose. And when we rise in remembrance, they rise with us.